It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good Saturday afternoon. Thank you for joining me here on the Kim Hammer Show. We appreciate you taking a little time out to listen. If you will, just share it with your friends. Also, if you happen to be driving out of radio range, you can pick us up on the web, either on Facebook Live or get on the radio station, and they'll be carrying it. As always, you can go up to the show after the fact to my website, which is www.thekimhammershow.com, and you can share that with your friends after it gets downloaded down. We're glad to have a beautiful Saturday after a lot of rain, which my guests today are Keli Wylie, who is the Alternative Project Deliverance Administrator for Department of Transportation, and then Steve Frisbee, who is the Assistant Chief Engineer of Operations. I know the rain has caused y'all an immense amount of problems, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Want to remind you, because you'll be hearing some commercials on it, Wings Over Bryant is coming up next Saturday, June 19th. You can get your tickets at any Big Red store in Central Arkansas, or any Big Red store for that matter, to a great weekend at the Bryant, or the Wings Over Bryant Air Show. It is going to be an incredible show. They're going to have a lot of vendors. They're going to have everything you want for kids. I think the gates open at 10, and it'll be over at 2, and it will be an action-packed 4 hours. That'll be a family-friendly environment that you want to go, and it'll be a great way to spend some time with your dad, or dad to spend time with your kids, and take them out there to Wings Over Bryant. You can go up on the Bryant Chamber of Commerce website if you want more information. I think there's even a map up there. They'll show you where all the activities are. I would encourage you to get there early and plan on staying and having a great day at Wings Over Bryant. We'll have some more information on that, but you can get your tickets at the Big Red stores here in Arkansas. All right, we're going to talk about today Department of Transportation. Kind of hard for some of us that have been around a while to not say Highway Department, but you are the Arkansas Department of Transportation, thus RDOT. So, Keli, thank you for being on today. And tell me, first of all, what is an Alternative Project Deliverance Administrator, and how'd you get all that on your name tag is what I want to know. So
very small text.
Very small, very small. So, Keli, what is it that you do?
Right. So Alternative Project Delivery is a word that we use for delivering a project other than our traditional design, bid, build method. So design, bid, build is when the plans are designed. We bid it out to all qualified contractors, and the lowest qualified bidder will construct the project, build it. So alternative delivery would be design, build, construction manager, general contractor, projects, or progressive design build, those types. Anytime a contractor is involved in the plan development process, it's alternative delivery.
So that's not your normal day-to-day operations that RDOT does. These are the projects that are going to be put out for bid, or that are going to go through the procurement process for a particular project.
Right, and it's a qualifications-based selection for the procurement instead of the low bid, like I talked about earlier, which is 99.9% of our projects.
Okay, pull the mic to you a little closer. Don't be afraid of it. So, all right, Steve Frisbee, Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations. What does that put under your umbrella that you're supposed to do?
Well, basically, I'm over the entire state operations, which consist of our maintenance forces, the ones that go out and maintain the roadways, mow, weed eat, pothole repair, things like that, as well as the construction operations. So throughout the state, the districts that have the resident engineers' offices that take the jobs, the low bid jobs, and do we do alternative delivery on inspection as well?
We do some.
We do some. And so our engineers, field engineers, inspectors that go out and inspect the work, as well as our statewide maintenance. I know many people are interested about the bridge. We do the bridge inspections as well.
Okay. And, one of the benefits of me getting to do the Kim Hammer Show is, unlike in a committee meeting at the Capitol, I don't have to share you with anybody. I can ask you all the questions. So I learn something every time I have somebody with a state agency in. And so what I hear you saying is, Keli, you're kind of over this part over here, and Steve, you're over this part over here with a little bit of overlap, maybe there in between. But let's start off with you first then, Keli. The current projects, tell us about some of the current projects, and the ones that come to my mind, of course, is the I-30 crossing out here coming across the river. You got the I-30 project down in Saline County. You've got one up in Bella Vista. You've got a lot of projects going on around the state. We're not just talking Central Arkansas. So What's the laundry list of some of the projects that the RDOT's underway with right now?
Right. So, like you said, the I-30 construction here, I-30 crossing in downtown Little Rock and North Little Rock. We began construction on that project in September of last year, September 2020. Currently, we've constructed all of the deep foundations for the eastbound River Bridge, the new eastbound River Bridge. We are doing a lot of work in downtown Little Rock with reconnecting the city street grid. We're going to be demolishing the 9th Street overpass this summer and reconstructing it, and doing some work in the North Terminal interchange. But overall, it's a capacity improvement project as well as an interchange improvement project with the bridge replacement as well.
Okay. And what other projects you want to focus on, and then we'll come back and pick up a few questions. So that's I-30. What about let's talk about I-30 down in Benton, because we
Okay,
had a meeting
certainly.
about that, and why don't you talk about that one?
Certainly. We let that project to construction in May of 2019. It's reconstructing the existing concrete pavement and widening it from 4 lanes to 6 lanes, replacing 4 sets of main lane bridges there, Saline River, the Haskell interchange, and Highway 70, as well as the reconstruction of the South Street interchange and that Highway 229 Haskell interchange.
We're going to come back and talk about that one specifically in a little bit and get some information out to people that, and I appreciate very much, because you came down to a meeting along with the contractors, and we had some state reps and senators in there, and, it was very transparent and open. And I appreciate it. It seems like traffic is flowing better down there. So
Right.
I appreciate you coming in on doing that. What about up there, Bella Vista? You got a big one going up in Bella Vista?
We do. We've been working on the Bella Vista bypass since 2011. Total of 6 projects to construct the bypass there, at a total cost of around $200 million. Like I said, we began construction in 2011, and we are quickly approaching completion of that bypass at the end of this year. And that will coordinate with Missouri Department of Transportation on their portion coming down from Pineville, Missouri. So once completed at the end of the year, you'll be able to travel from, Fayetteville, Bentonville area, all the way up to Pineville and on your way to I-49. So that's a huge project for that region.
Refresh my memory. Once they get down to Fort Smith, what's the plan for Fort Smith to Texarkana as far as that? Or is there one so that that's a continuous interstate all up and down that?
There is. There's a plan for a future I-49 along the western side of Arkansas, but we are still in the planning phases. We haven't completed our environmental process yet to select a corridor, but we are actively working on it as funds become available.
Okay. I-69. What is I-69?
Steve, do you want to talk about
Yeah,
I-69?
sure. So I know one project that we've got planned here in the future is looking here for April of 22. We're expected to do a project that's going to estimated cost $75 to $100 million. And so this is a portion of future I-69. So what we're going to do is construct 2 lanes of a future 4-lane divided interstate. This is in Drew and Deshay County. So it's going to go from Monticello to McGee. And so this is a portion of that work that we had some funding dedicated for, added some funding to that to get that portion for I-69 ready.
Okay. Are you guys at least far enough to know what the final completion date of a project like that is? You said 2 lanes of a 4-lane. Do you have a projected date, like, I don't know, 2040 or whatever, or do you get that deep into the weeds at
For
this
the
point?
entire I-69?
Right.
No, sir. The funding is just not there. I mean, it's similar to I-49. I mean, it's in the billions to complete. Even from Texarkana to Fort Smith, it's a large amount of money. So I-69, there was some money dedicated for I-69 earmarked. So we're trying to leverage that funding, utilizing some other federal funding, state funding to get these segments in. But it's really going to take a large amount of funding to ever complete such large amounts of this interstate.
All right. I tell you what, I'm going to kind of bounce all over the place a little bit, which is my reputation. I'm going to bounce around just a little bit, because when you say something, it makes me think about something. You're talking about leveraging funding. We went through the big, tax deal here in the last couple of sessions. And as far as leveraging funding, I'm not sure that people understand what leveraging funding means, A, not sure they understand the value of leveraging funding, especially when it comes to us competing against other states for money. So can you tell you what we're going to do? We're going to take a break real quick, and when we come back, that's what I want to talk about. Give you a chance to kind of pass the hot potato. Which one of y'all are going to talk about, or both chime in? All right, you're listening to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM. The Answer. Always remind you that if you want to stay active, stay current with some current events, go up to my website, which is www.thekimhammershow.com, and you can pick up some information off of that website. I think that'll prove valuable. Right now, let's take a break, and I want to tell you about the Wings over Bryant. Listen carefully.
The largest air show in the South is coming to Bryant, Arkansas. Mark your calendars for the Arkansas Heart Hospital Wings Over Bryant Air Show, June 19th at the Saline County Regional Airport. Featured acts include the high-flying Team Aeroshell, the Bulldog Formation Flight Team, and the 24,000 horsepower jet truck Aftershock. Tickets on sale at all Central Arkansas Big Red stores for only $15, and kids 12 and under get free gate admission. Visit wingsoverbryant.com for more information. It's the Arkansas Heart Hospital Wings Over Bryant Air Show, Father's Day weekend.
There you go. It'll be a great weekend for you as a dad. Go out and spend some time with your kids. Get a great air show along with all the other free activities that'll be there, as you mentioned, or as was mentioned. For adults, it's $15 ticket. You can't get anything that cheap. You get access to all the vendor trucks. You get access to all the free games, everything that they're going to have out there. So remember, Wings Over Bryant. That's June 19th. I'll get my date right here. And June 19th, which is a week from the Saturday. Pick up your tickets at the Big Red. All right. So before we took that little break, we were talking about the funding and the match funding that goes with the feds. Tell people how that works and why that's so critical.
So to be able to leverage, like Steve said, to leverage those funds, the last round of build grants that the Trump administration rolled out, we were able to be competitive and receive one of those grants because we had state and federal funds to put towards the project. And so we were able to leverage the funds we have to be able to ask for and to be able to prove that we could complete the project in a timely manner if we had those grant funds available. So just having those state funds and federal funds really helps us be competitive when those grants come out.
So do you do anything in the way of the pre-planning of the project? You talked about I-49, and I asked you about, how long it was going to be to complete. Is it kind of an ongoing process that you are constantly develop that? Because I know you got an engineering team over there and you're constantly developing what that would look like. So whenever that money comes down, you already have that site work or that prep work done. Is that part of the process, or do you go for the money based on what we have to match against the federal, and then you have to kind of come back and develop the plans after the fact? Is it the chicken and egg, or which one comes first, or all come together?
Right. So that particular grant that I was referring to on Highway 67, 167, we have those plans developed, identified, the projects were identified, and for that entire project, we were already in some phase of plan development. So we know when we're going to let the project to contract, when the right-of-way, the property will be purchased and utilities relocated. So we have to have that identified when we do apply for those grants.
So when you appeal to the feds for the money, you can say, we as a state have this much money, and if we get that much money and you match it with what the feds are willing to give, then this is the project we can complete. So how far out are you planning at any given time? Because Bella Vista's been on the books for a long time.
Right.
And I know the I-30 crossing has been on the books for a long time. How much lead time do you have in planning? Because I think about growth patterns and, like down in Saline County or up there in Northwest Arkansas, it's got to be a challenge to be planning out ahead based on the growth patterns so you can not turn into a Highway 10 project, which we haven't talked about. I went through there yesterday, and the growth the growth that's going. How do you balance it all so you know which ones get picked first?
Right. So like with the I-30 crossing project, that's been identified, the bridge replacement and some sort of capacity improvements have been identified since the early 2000s. It's shown up in planning documents through our Metropolitan Planning Organization as well as RDOT. We've known for 20 years now that something needs to be done in that corridor. Until we had the half-cent sales tax passed in 2012, we didn't have funding for that project. So we have to look at traffic growth. We rely on our metropolitan planning organizations to give us some density, population density, some projections to be able to plan in those, highly populated areas of our state.
So the with the half-cent sales tax being able to be utilized, and with what we are experiencing now is kind of a boom economy. As a side note, I think a lot of that is shored up by the CARES Act money that's coming in, and there's going to be a leveling off somewhere. Just as a side note to my listeners, I know we've got a surplus looking at $1 billion, and we as legislators want to be responsible with that as far as making sure that it can be turned back to the people. But we certainly don't want to be in a position as a state like some others where they turned back too quick and then they had to come back and add taxes back. Or you've got like Ohio, whose teachers' retirement fund, I understand, is in trouble. What I hope this generation of legislators and this administrative branch and the ones that are coming in would think about is the long game, not the short game, so that whatever we do could be long-term sustainable well into the future instead of just break the bank overnight. That's just a personal editorial on the side. Not you guys just sit silent for a second there on that one. But so when that money comes in, then you have to make the decision. So like the census numbers are not back in. We know that as a state, we're up about 110,000 in growth overall, but we don't know where that falls as far as each one of the respective counties. How do you guys determine growth patterns? We talked about it, but how do you actually determine it and calculate into the future which direction the population is going so that you can, get ahead of the pattern?
I'll take that. So I spent some time working in our planning division, and as Kelly said, we work with the metropolitan planning organizations, that's the MPOs, in our urban areas. And so with their assistance, it's a joint effort. So this is with FHWA, with RDOT. We have planners in our division, as well as engineers, as well as the MPO. We utilize a lot of traffic data, and so it's a combination. You've got the census data, where are the people at, where are the people moving to, but you also have traffic data. You can have areas that have very low population, but super high traffic densities, and so we are constantly monitoring. We have an entire division that monitors that. We do traffic counts. We coordinate with the cities with traffic counts, and we utilize those patterns of traffic growth, traffic decline, truck traffic, freight traffic. We do different studies that we work with different partners and study certain corridors, certain areas, from safety to freight, and all of these things combine to help determine which projects should go where.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to come back to you in a minute, Steve, because I got a few questions to ask that I think fall under your wheelhouse. But Kelly, let me ask you, like up in Jacksonville, worked real hard to get that traffic flow improved because there's a lot of growth going that way. There's actually a lot of growth going a lot of different directions that are here in central Arkansas anyway. Jacksonville, you got that nice approach, and then it kind of narrows down, and then it opens up, puts you on the spot. Any hope to ever open that thing up, to where it could be a little bit wider through that corridor up there in Jacksonville?
Yes, sir. We actually have a project scheduled for mid-2022 that will complete the 6-lane or the widening of that facility through Jacksonville.
Okay.
And then on north through Cabot, and improvements to the Highway 5 and the Highway 89 interchanges. And that'll be coming mid-next year, mid-2020.
How long will it take to complete that project, would you guess?
I would think with the scope of work and the size of that project, it is spread out over, Steve, how many miles is it?
5.2 miles.
About 5.2 miles. I would anticipate anywhere, 2.5, 3 years, just roughly, based on our previous experience on that corridor.
Okay.
There's some pretty intensive improvements, and there, like, as you know, there's a lot of traffic in that area.
Well, and then you got all the utilities to move and everything that goes with it. But and that's one thing maybe the public doesn't understand is the price of progress comes with a price, and there's a huge inconvenience while you're working on things. I mean, that's kind of what we're experiencing down there in I-30 right now. Is it's a huge inconvenience, but yet when it's all said and done, it's going to be well worth it because of the improvements that are made. Do you guys ever sit where you are? Not to be judgmental, because it's easy to armchair quarterback. Do you guys ever sit where you sit with the responsibilities that you've got now and wonder why the people 30 years ago didn't think further out as far as expanding the interstate system back then, or was it just because the growth of the state was not there? The money that they had at the time limited them to what they could do? Or what do you do in the position that you're in, thinking to 30 years down the road? Because we are a growing state, and I think we're going to grow more as we, become more conservative. I think we're going to grow more because people are leaving the liberal states and looking to the conservative states. What do you do to think 30 years down the road and do what you can do now?
Well, I'll say this: I've worked at RDOT almost 30 years. So I'm around 25 years, and so I look back to when I began, and I'm right here from Gravel Ridge, Central Little Rock, and I've now worked all over the state. But I remember when I interned with RDOT in college, and we had the North Belt looked at, and so it's been that long ago. And so the easy part actually is planning the work and saying what the needs are. So we're doing plans, and each MPO around the state, we work with them, and we plan things out 30 to 40 years. And so the needs, it's as our previous director would say, the needs outweigh the available funding, and the story that we've been telling for many years now. And so it's actually the easy part is to plan what needs are, but then prioritizing those needs is always the challenge with the limited funding. And again, going back 30 years when I-30, I-40 were deteriorating, and we had some of the worst interstates in the country, and then it was a funding issue. And then some of the first bond program where we're able to go out and get some of the Garvey bonds, and then design. And we've really, in that first 20 years of my career or less, to get to see our interstates go from the worst condition in the nation to the best condition in the nation. And then the second bond program to maintain those. And so it's really been a funding issue. And I know nobody likes to hear that, but it all boils back to our initial funding mechanism, the fuel tax, a flat tax. And this is why we're so excited that we're in this time that with the passage of issue one, we feel like we're actually getting some leverage now on not just basing things on a flat fuel tax that's actually declining, but on a sales tax that's based on the growth of the state.
Okay. Why it's on my mind, fact or fiction, bypass around Little Rock from Jacksonville coming over to I-40 over there by where 430 comes in. Is that on the books?
Yes, sir. So that's during my last year, I worked in our planning division. I oversaw, and it's still ongoing. We're doing a study on that. So we call it the East-West Connector Study. So I mentioned the North Belt before. Again, 30 years ago, we were looking at this North Belt. It was not just funding, it was getting through Camp Robinson and just the feasibility of being able to do that.
You got to get through the swamp is what you got to get
right,
through over
right.
there, man.
So the latest idea and study that we're doing is we've got a consultant. We've been working with all the cities from Maumelle to North Little Rock, Sherwood, over to Jacksonville, is to say, okay, instead of a North Belt freeway, how about just find what kind of connectors, not to get from necessarily from Jacksonville to Maumelle, but what if you live in, and as you know, this is where I was raised in North Gravel Ridge, Sherwood area. They took that area in, and it's really growing. So how do you get from Gravel Ridge area out? And so that's the challenge. And so this east-west connector study is to take those that are in that area to get them out to the east, to the west, but also the continuance. And so the study's really going along pretty well. We've done some public meetings, got public input, and the study is to look at maybe existing corridors, widen those out, make those more free-flowing versus the stop signal. And so it's really a blended version of not a new location, some on new, some on existing.
Okay, very good. We got to take a break. In studio today are Keli Wylie. She is the Alternative Project Delivery Administrator for Arkansas Department of Transportation, and then also Steve Frisbee, Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations with RDOT. We're talking about all the current projects that are going on. We're going to come back and talk about the bridge situation. Got a few specific questions I've gotten from constituents, none that are landmines, so y'all rest easy, that I want to pitch to you so we can get some answers for that. And with that, we'll come back to the Kim Hammer Show after this break. Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM of The Answer. As always, want to remind you that you have the opportunity to go up to my website, stay up to date with current events. That's thekimhammershow.com. If you will, please feel free to share that to build the base, and I appreciate that very much. Also remind you that Wings Over Bryant coming up on June 19th, next weekend, Father's Day weekend. You get all your tickets at the Big Red stores here in Central Arkansas. In studio, Keli Wylie, Alternative Project Delivery Administrator for RDOT, and Steve Frisbee, the Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations. All right, Steve, let me come to you because I think this falls under your wheelhouse. These mowers are out mowing the ditches. I don't want my yard mowed in front of my house. Do I have jurisdiction to tell them don't take those big mowers through my yard because I keep it mowed and so they don't rut it up? Do I have any authority over that in that right of way?
Sure, and we call it the good neighbor policy, and we do our best to skip. And it's generally it's pretty simple to notice when somebody keeps their ditch mowed, and so it is right of way. But if the person that lives adjacent to the right of way keep their ditch mowed, then we're going to skip through that as we come through. Sometimes it gets challenging this time of year, like you say. The landowner or the resident tends to mow it, but it's wet and it may be growed up, and then we've seen it many times. We skip it because we think, well, that's theirs, and then we get in
Chewed
trouble
out.
because why did you skip my driveway? And
Yeah.
like, well, you've always mowed that, but definitely, and any time you would reach out to us, each county has an area county headquarters, or if you just contact our central office, and they can get you in touch with them, and we can skip those areas.
So what is the number the public can call? What?
They can always call 501-569-2000.
Okay.
And then it helps if you say what county you live in, and if it's a maintenance issue like that, to ask for the county headquarters number,
Okay.
and they can transfer you to them.
All right. Other question. What about cutting trees out of the right of way? I mean, I got a fence. We had a big debate about signs a couple sessions ago about cutting trees in front of signs. Big debate. So what about trees and other obstacles that are in the state right of way? What's the deal on that or process?
Well, basically, it's a permitting process. So from the right-of-way line, again, if there's a tree that's partly on the right-of-way and it's in your yard and you're trimming it, we have so much going on. We're not the police. We're not out trying to catch somebody saying, you cut that tree, it's on the right-of-way. However, it's just state law, and if it's public right-of-way, then it's the state's property, and therefore there's a permitting process. And so if anybody's doing significant work like that, whether they be digging a ditch, we have that often happen, and whether it be in farm country or in somebody's front yard, and they want to go and change drainage, dig a ditch, trim on a tree, then it's really the same process. Is contact that area maintenance headquarters or call the central office, get in touch with them. Each district has a permit officer. They'll meet you out on site, and they'll work that out with you, whether it be a driveway permit or any type of permit. And it's really pretty hassle-free. And there's times there may be something on the right of way that's in poor condition that we could take care of for you.
Okay. And then the last one for you, and I'll let you off the hook. We'll go back and pick on Keli a minute. The last one is, I noticed going up to Searcy, they've been spending a lot of time and around Central Arkansas, like where the exit ramps are, cleaning out the trees that are in those, I call them triangle areas, but also going up towards Searcy, done a lot of work just taking the trees out of the right of way. Some people say, why are we spending money doing that when we could be spending on potholes? So what's the story as far as cleaning out everything in those areas?
Yeah, and that's something I'm very familiar with. So I was part of the group that started that, and so you can blame me for it.
I'm not going to blame you. I just want to know, give me a good answer.
Right,
That's
and
all
we
I wanna
do
know.
get a lot of questions about it, so I appreciate the opportunity to share about that. And so we have done that. We call it reclaiming our right-of-way. And so these interstates, for example, were built in the 60s, and we have a clear zone that's a safety zone for the traveling public, but we also just have construction limits where when we do a new project, and they did this back in the 60s when they built the interstates, they try to not cut any trees down that they can. If the median's wide enough, we like the trees. We're the natural state. However, over the years, as these trees have grown, they could tend to come in on the right of way. So it's really a safety issue. We've got a lot of good feedback, and we've got some criticism. Say, hey, we're the natural state, and you're clearing all the trees down. But it's really where we started down in southwest Arkansas. We had a lot of expansive clay soils, and imagine just like around a house, and many people know this. You have that pretty tree, you plant it next to your house. it's a small tree, it's probably not going to hurt anything. But when it turns into a really big tree, now it's cracking your foundation. It's falling on the house. Same things happen on the interstate. We were spending millions of dollars repairing the shoulders and the main lanes because when a tree canopy hangs and reaches out to the shoulder, the root zone is underneath the road. When that roots are underneath the road and it gets to the hot summer, it sucks all the moisture out. Now you get cracking. We were getting settlement cracking. We have been fighting this for years now. And so we're very excited that we can. So we're actually saving money by spending money. We've got to get these trees back. And then it has up multiple other benefits from snow and ice. When you have that beautiful tree canopy, it's nice. But when that snow and ice hits and nature can't help us clear those roads and get the sun cleared out, so it's got those benefits. It's got wildflower benefits. A big thing we're doing with this is all these places that we're clearing back, whether it be in an infield area or just widening a 30-foot zone, we're dedicating that to wildflower plots because Arkansas wasn't just all forest. It was native grasses and prairie lands, and you had the natural, trees would burn, and you'd have it's a habitat issue as well.
Dang, I feel a lot smarter after today. I
Even
wonder.
pollinators. Another thing, my son's a beekeeper, my father-in-law are, and for those that know beekeeping, is that it's the declining pollinator population and trying to figure out what's going on. It's just a huge impact to our nation. And
Okay.
so between that and the monarch butterfly, clearing this out and having these native, now this isn't your beautiful flowers you're going to see at the Lowe's and the Home Depot. These are native Arkansas wildflowers. And some people then they gripe that, well, now you're not mowing that, but these are the native flowers that again promote those pollinators.
The I think about driving down to Malvern, and you talked about the canopy. Is that part of the reason why it's such a? And I know y'all went in several years ago and had to fix that stretch going down toward Malvern. It was like driving on a rug board. Is that attributed to just because of concrete versus asphalt, or those? Because I know they got a lot of trees that hang over the road down that way. Is that contributing to the problem down there?
It's a combination. So what the trees were doing was really damaging the shoulders, pulling away, and the bigger dips in the road. Now that rug board, that bump, 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 that is basically just the original concrete. And concrete makes a really good pavement. Asphalt makes a good pavement. It's just that they only last so long. Just like at your house, you can pour a concrete driveway and it's beautiful, but 30 years later, it's just got maintenance issues. And so that rug board is the 80,000-pound loads. And again, the industry keeps wanting to add heavier and heavier and heavier weights, but those interstates weren't built for that years ago.
All right. So speaking about what you just talked about, the concrete, the stretch I-30, I'm gonna say starting about Geyer Springs Church, running down to down in Saline County, that center lane, it ain't no good.
Right.
I mean, just call it what it is. That is only about 15 years old, if I remember right. What's the story on that? And A, how was it allowed to happen in the first place? B, what's the plan to fix it? Because I noticed people don't even drive it if they don't have to, which pushes the trucks to the left lane, and just really gets messed up down through there. What's the plan for it?
One part of that I'm familiar with is called ASR. And so one concern is why it's deteriorating faster than usual. It's I always say this wrong, alkali silica reactivity. And so this has been a nationwide problem. It's it's a chemical process from the sand and certain river sand materials, and concrete is made up of sand and aggregates and cement. And it's the chemicals in the cement and the sand are reacting and causing this problem, and it's causing that concrete to deteriorate prematurely. Because same concrete, like you said, it should have lasted longer than 15 years. Now, part of that, again, it's the traffic counts. Getting pounded every day by heavier and heavier and heavier trucks is part of it. But that particular segment, we're really experienced that ASR badly. And so we've got a project coming for that, actually going to be letting this summer. Going to cost about $30 or $40 million, but we're calling this a preservation project. So we're going to take that concrete pavement that's beginning to deteriorate by this ASR, and if you can treat it, just like you would seal concrete, sometimes you just have to do a foundation seals. We put a seal coat on that, so we're going to put what we call a silane treatment on the walls, on the concrete, and then we're going to cover it with an asphalt coating, and that's going to keep that water out because it takes the rainwater to cause this ASR to happen.
So is that going to be asphalt once all said and done down through there?
Over the top of the concrete, right? And
That's all 3 lanes.
All 3 lanes.
Because you're not having to touch the southbound lane or the south lane.
Yeah, and part of that,
what would be the eastbound lane? You're not having, because that's in pretty good shape. Are y'all going to be touching
it's
it?
it's all deteriorating. The center lane, the reason that happens more, and it gets into some design issues, but the places that these lanes begin to fail first is near the edge of a joint, and that center lane does have that joint down the middle.
Yeah.
And that came into play as part of how that got built and to fit and to keep lanes open to traffic and still build lanes. If we could just put traffic somewhere else and build a brand new road, it works so much better. But when you do this stage work, whether it's a bridge or whether it's the lanes, it's that center lane, and then it's a weaker point, and that's what's failing first.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here to promote Wings Over Bryant. We'll come back, and then, Kelly, let's take some time to talk about the bridges, okay? Here we go.
Coming to Bryant, Arkansas, Father's Day weekend. It's the Arkansas Heart Hospital Wings Over Bryant Air Show, June 19th at the Saline County Regional Airport. Kids 12 and under get free gate admission, and there's something to do for the entire family. Some of the top acts in the country will be on hand, including Warbirds in Action, the Texas T-Carts, and Team Aeroshell. Tickets on sale now at all Central Arkansas Big Red stores or online at wingsoverbryant.com. Treat your dad to a fun family event June 19th.
All right, welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. My guests today are Keli Wylie, who is the Alternative Project Delivery Administrator for RDOT, and also Steve Frisbee, who's the Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations. All right, so let me tell you what. Let me come back to you, Steve, because I want to talk about the I-40 bridge over in Memphis. That's the hot button right now. People don't think it affects us, but it does. I know a bunch of legislators that are going to Nashville in July for a conference, so we got to make our travel plans and figure that out. What about, Kelly, or whichever one of y'all want to pitch to each other? What about the bridge? As far as the repair time, we've heard 2 months. We know they've got that big beam. Just talk about the repair process and what we can expect time frame wise.
I'll take that one too. I've been living and breathing this bridge since May 11th, the day it happened, and we have an amazing team. We brought in national experts. That night, we flew in a consultant that's dealt with this before, had consultants on site already, and so we're partnering with TDOT. And so Kiewit Infrastructure Group is the contractor that was acquired under emergency contract to get this going, and they're outstanding contractors, work really fast. And within days, they were able to acquire the materials and get this bridge back to a stable position from the fracture. At this point, it may not seem like a lot's going on the bridge, but there is work going on 24/7 there from the fabrication. So where we stand now is we have AFCO steels involved, Nucor, I believe some of the materials are coming from, but the designers have come up with the permanent repair, and the materials are being fabricated now, and the contractor Kiewit is out there doing some prep work to actually pull this bridge back together and bolt it. We call it PT, or post-tensioning. So we have to create these weldments, put some bars on there, really stress it down. So they're putting some bolts in and doing some things now. But to answer the long-term question, Kiewit is working on that final schedule. That's the hardest thing, is to say, what day is it going to be open? They know how long it takes to do their work, but you've got so many factors into play. But we're really close. We're thinking just in the next couple of weeks, Kiewit will be able to give us that schedule. But they're known for meeting schedules, and we really expect it's going to be in the next few months.
Are you talking about the permanent fix or just
the permanent fix?
Okay, because nobody's getting on that bridge until it's permanently fixed. Is that right?
Right. Now, we have construction crews on the bridge.
Right.
But it's based on the engineer's calculations of exactly what it can carry.
Right.
And so there's work going on the bridge, but it's limited to just certain loads.
Okay.
But we're also, not to put a damper on it, so that permanent fixed schedule, but we need to figure out what went on here. And so we are doing forensics testing on these cracks, and to be sure that we don't get additional cracks like this one in these tire girders, we're doing additional testing. There's 191 welds similar to where this fracture occurred along 1,800 feet of this bridge. And so we're coming in and doing, we call it NDT, or non-destructive testing, ultrasound. Just like a ultrasound for a baby, we can go in there with an ultrasound and look at that weld, what the naked eye cannot see.
That's kind of like what they do, maybe not. Is that kind of like what they do on the railroad cars? It used to be they would inspect the wheels on the railroad car, and now they've got a X-ray system,
Right.
to where they can detect cracks even while the train's moving down the track, that the human eye would never be. So is that similar to what you're
Not
talking
familiar with
about?
that, but like on pipelines, all
Okay. Yeah.
welding it just inherently is a imperfect process.
Right.
You can roll the pure steel, but when you weld steel, it creates different issues. And so this is it's the welds that we're inspecting, and we basically go in there and X-ray the welds. And I only mention that to say if we find additional welds that have a problem, we've got to make permanent repairs to that. And there's no way to schedule that time frame. We're keeping our fingers crossed that as we go through that we don't find any other issues, but we've got to put the safety of the public first, of course, and we can't put anybody on this bridge until we know. So we're doing that testing. We're flying in people this weekend, getting the paint removed from these welds and going to work 24/7 testing these welds while Kiewit's doing their work. So there's many different things going on this bridge right now.
How close was it to going down?
Good question. We get national experts, many engineers. It was in bad shape. Now, you can do models and calculations and say that one engineer says, well, it would have collapsed. Another might say, well, it would have just dropped here and it would have been more obvious. I'm not a structural engineer. I learned it in school, but I understand the basic concepts of the truss. And this is what we call a fracture critical member. And that's why it's so important. And that's why it necessitated closing the bridge. We actually have a lot of bridges that have cracks and damage, holes in the bridge. And we can get in there and maybe move traffic over a little bit or get in there and make a repair. But when it's on a fracture critical member, there's the only thing we can do is shut it down. And so this was a significant crack.
All right. The I-55, they're doing a pattern shift on it in order to get the traffic through there quicker. Are you seeing any measurable results that if people are traveling from Arkansas to Nashville, that their time delay would be reduced any?
Well, we just made one change yesterday, and part of that was a little bit of bad timing. So we work every day. There's just so many moving factors with this bridge repair with us and TDOT and the cities and the emergency management. But we meet daily and coordinate, but it's just, it's complicated. So TDOT was working on the Crump interchange. And so those that live in that area know that area well. They know that Crump, when you come across 55, it's a one lane to the south on 55. And so here you've got 2 lanes of 55 traffic normally, 2 lanes of 40 traffic, all into 2 lanes. And then you get down to Crump and it's 1 lane. And so TDOT's wanted to get this 1 lane to 2 for years. So from the day that this closed, they've been working towards trying to get that emergency ramp to 2 lanes. At the same time that we're doing the bridge work, same time we're trying to strategize different ways to ease the pain for West Memphis, for the travelers. So yesterday when we implemented some of the changes, TDOT was working on that ramp. And so the combination of our changes and what they were working on, it was our worst travel day yet. And so to give the short answer from that was a long one, but we don't know yet. Today is so far a lot better than yesterday, but we hope that the changes we've made will make some improvements, and we're going to tweak that throughout next week.
Okay. I'm still going to go south and come up north and avoid it, but
I was going to plug I Drive Arkansas. That's RDOT's app. We have an app that you can go and actually see live traffic, where it's slowing, where it's flowing freely. You can look at any of our traffic cameras that we have around the state, actually go in and view, look at live traffic, as well as look for any kind of construction zones, any highways or interstates that are under construction. You can actually see the information about it. Know before you go. We always say that.
Yeah.
I look at iDrive every time I leave the house before I leave to see where I'm going, to see if what the traffic looks like, if I need a detour or go around something. So plug that.
Yep. Before we get out here, if you'll give that to me, I'll put it up on my website. I can't imagine probably 60% of people in Arkansas have that because I hear it referred to all the time. But if I can get that down, I'll get it up on my website, and people can go up there and grab that link. Talking about bridges, we got one down there in I-30 in Saline County, and it involves, that expansion project involves crossing the Saline River, which is within itself a challenge. Right. Temporary bridge was put in down there, had some issues with that. That's what we had the meeting about. Right. So far, so good, because I know weather was playing an event in that. What about the temporary bridge, and where are we down there on that?
Right. So the temporary bridge, we had a lot of rain at the same time that we were putting our asphalt surface on that temporary bridge. And the temporary bridge is to allow us to construct the Saline River Bridge and the Highway 229 interchange in 2 phases instead of 3. Number one, it protects our workers from working in the middle, but also protects the traveling public from having constant shifts. But when we went to put that asphalt surface on the temporary bridge, the rain didn't help us any, and the surface fell apart. So when we met, we had just completed a weekend detour off of the interstate to pave that temporary bridge. So far, it's holding up well. We've seen it perform well. We haven't seen any major issues. Of course, we are going to reevaluate that this weekend since we have had five days of rain. We're going to look at that today and see what we need to do, along with repairing any potholes that have popped up with the rain. And so that was a very big, very big issue for Saline County. Anybody traveling on I-30, but we think we have it fixed. We hope so, and we will be paying close attention to it if anything pops up to be able to repair it in a timely manner.
Okay, you brought it up, so it's a self-inflicted wound.
Okay.
Potholes.
Potholes, yes.
Potholes can ruin a rim on a car quicker than anything else. What is the strategy of RDOT dealing with potholes? And I know weather plays a part in it, but what's the strategy that gives people hope that they're going to get fixed?
I'll take that. So it's a two-part strategy oftentimes. So when it's raining, and that's when the potholes develop, the rain is our worst enemy. Water is our worst enemy. So when that water gets in that asphalt pavement and gets underneath, it can debond it, especially when the asphalt's getting old. So the first strategy is when that pothole's there and it's raining, or it's the next day and it's raining week after week. You can't just put fresh asphalt in that hole; it'll come out. So we have to do a temporary repair just to try to maintain traffic. And that's even more complicated. It's not that difficult on these 2-lane roads, but when you've got in the center of Little Rock and 3 lanes, the most dangerous place to be is a worker in that middle lane. And how do you do that without impacting traffic? And we try to do work overnight, and so it's very challenging. And then it makes it even harder, for example, this project, when you've got a barrier wall on one side and you just can't safely even get in there without just shutting traffic down, and it's a nightmare. So it's really challenging.
One of the questions or concerns or criticisms, why don't people work at night when there's less traffic, including the construction companies? What's the response to that?
Well, I know on the I-30 Saline project and also 30 Crossing, they are working at night. They're working overnight, especially if they have to get into the main lanes onto I-30. Anything that, because there is less traffic, it's safer for them to be out in the interstate and working. They are working overnight. Even downtown I-30 Crossing, Thursday night, we had a 1 a.m. concrete pour on one of the columns. So they're out there working around the clock, especially at night.
And some people listen to what other people say, and they may not know that unless you're out at 1 o'clock in the morning, that there is some effort. Real quick, I got 4 minutes. Are all the projects on schedule according to what the contracts require? All the projects, or you got problem areas?
Oh, throughout the state?
Throughout the state.
Oh, well, there's always some projects. We're always dealing with different contractors that have issues, delays, whether it be utility delays, self-inflicted delays, design issues. I mean, we have lots of projects going around the state. I couldn't speak to any specific ones, but yeah, we monitor it regularly, and we do have projects that are on schedule, projects ahead. Unfortunately, we do have projects behind schedule.
Okay. Which, in talking to one of the contractors, it's like everything else, getting people to show up to work and getting qualified people
Right.
that can work.
I mean, we have materials issues just getting paint from the Texas issue there this winter, getting epoxy materials and the COVID-related contractors.
Okay. All right. Anything y'all want to throw out there that we haven't talked about that you'd like everybody that listens to know?
Oh, I know, again, 40 Bridge is what I've been dealing with a lot lately, and I do want to say with the improvements we made, TDOT, what they're working on at Crump, and what we did yesterday, we're hoping to get this. Going to be a little tough today. The weekend traffic should be light, and we're hoping to see a little bit improvements next week.
Okay. All right. Anything from you, Kelly?
I think we covered it.
Okay. All right. I've got about 2 minutes left, so let me pitch you one more thing just so I can use up all my time there. So, with regards to the speed limits on the interstate, we voted a couple of years ago to raise the speed limit by 5 miles an hour, but the signage doesn't reflect that. Any anything, and it may not be in either one of y'all's wheelhouses. So what about getting the speed limits up
On the interstates,
on the interstate?
they do have, that is in our maintenance division, and they have gotten some of the signs out. I couldn't personally speak to the exact status of that, but I believe they've gotten a lot of the interstate signs out there. There's some other 4-lane divided corridors that we're still doing some speed studies on, and there's other corridors that we've done it, and just it's a matter of getting the signs out. How many thousands and thousands of signs are in the state?
Okay. And one last thing, 30 seconds left. What about the rest stops? And I've had questions asked about the rest stops getting open. What's the status on them?
The current status on, we have several that a lot of people thought they were closed due to COVID, and there was a time there that certain ones were. But the ones like the White River Rest Stop, there's some other, Social Hill. We've had a lot of utility issues, sewer issues, and so we're working with the local cities as far as getting pump stations and things going to get the sewer and the water going.
Okay. Truck stop, as far as we got the truck stops opened up to where they can, I noticed they're toward Conway and down toward Remington Road. They've got those opened up to where they can pull off now, right?
The truck
Yeah.
parking areas.
Very good. All right. Very good. Well, you've been listening to the Kim Hammer Show today. My guests have been Keli Wylie, who is the Alternative Project Delivery Administrator, big title for the RDOT, and then Steve Frisbee, Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations, also a big title, with each of y'all having big responsibilities. Thank you for being on the Kim Hammer Show. If you want to go up to the website, we'll get that app up so you can look at iDrive Arkansas. It'd be a helpful tool for you to know. And as always, you can follow along on the Kim Hammer Show website, thekimhammershow.com. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day. Don't forget, next Saturday will be Wings over Bryant. I may work it out to where I broadcast live from there. We're going to try to work that out a little bit. And so just be ready to listen next Saturday at noon, 101.1 FM, The Answer.